Before we start with the session, I would like to give a small introduction about our speaker. Dr. Anbu is the head of School of Design Thinking as well as the Chief Design Officer of Intellect Design Arena Limited, a fintech company based out of Chennai. Dr. Anbu has decades of experience across different domains ranging from academics, learning and development, design thinking, coaching, and mentoring. He is a leadership coach for industry stalwarts through his association with ISB Hyderabad. Also, he is a member of the boards of studies of institutes such as SRM, SSN, NIET, etc. Previously, he was associated with Anna University, Standard Chartered Bank, and he headed a corporate learning university, Nalanda, at Polaris Software Labs. He has worked on a strategic defense project for United States security as well, and has a doctorate in the field of artificial intelligence. We are glad to have you, sir. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anvisha. Thank you, Surinder ji. It is indeed a pleasure connecting with all of you. Good afternoon, friends. It's I think it's an afternoon session, so I think all the more challenge on me to keep it interesting for you, right? And I need to keep it interesting for me as well, right? So yeah, so post lunch session, but it's very interesting from what. Heard from Surendra ji and Ramnath also, Mr. Ramnath Prabhu also updated me, and we did a little bit more study as into what are the things that you all are doing, right, in terms of design as an approach, right, into your curriculum, which is very exciting and it is very close to our heart as well. Yeah, as we will see today as we go along. What we are attempting to do today is this is also a design challenge, right? So we normally run a 3-day residential immersion workshop on design thinking, right? For faculties, and for student, it's a 3-credit course. So of course, you know the type of intense work that will go in. And what we are attempting today is to squeeze in all of that and design a 50-minute session with you. So that gives us about 10 minutes, hopefully some conversation and dialogue around whatever we have seen, right? So we have compressed it into a 1-hour session, right? So we'll attempt to kind of unfold this in front of you. Yeah, so if you have any questions, please do put it up in the chat box as we go along. So we will see if we can pick up some of those things and go through, right? All right, so good. So we come from this organization, both Intellect Design Arena, as Ramnath mentioned, which does a lot of work on FinTech, BFSI area. So in India, Reserve Bank of India runs on our product, LIC runs on our product, NABARD runs on our product, Honorable Prime Minister's the initiative of transparent procurement for the government e-marketplace runs on our product. And of course, we are present in 28 different countries with different products, but all of those have a very common element, which is designing for a future focus, right? How do you therefore think of things with always future in mind, right? In other words, not solving for today's customer's problem. Customer come to us with today's problem. Right, we did a workshop for NIC, the government organization, right, which is like the IT arm for the entire country. So they're talking about, some of our stakeholders come and say, you know what, driver's license have to be renewed online today. There is a demand. Can we design it? And we take a step back and say, great. But what else is going to happen 3 years from now, 5 years from now that we should take care of as part of the design, right? So that approach took us to a lot of places, and today, I'm happy to share that Intellect is valued as in National Stock Exchange. The valuation is crossed to $1 billion, right, as we speak. Yeah. So where did that journey start, right? When did that journey start? So about more than a decade ago, when Mr. Arun Jain, founder of Intellect Design Arena, also the founder of School of Design Thinking, visiting Silicon Valley. The things that he observed was with few companies, right? Today, Tesla itself is huge by in itself. You take Tesla, you take Google and Apple and 3, 4 companies, their annual turnover, friends, is larger than GDP of some of the country that we see around the world. Yearly turnover is larger than GDP of many countries. So how do they do that? Right? What is making them consistently, repeatedly come up with innovative things? It's not like talent doesn't exist anywhere else. Talent very much exists in the Silicon Valley of India and Bangalore, or in London, or in the US itself, in Washington, DC, or Seattle, or Chicago, or New York. But how is this one place, right, repeatedly does this? So two things comes to our mind, two things that we observed and concluded. One is, for them, innovation is way of life, right? For them, innovation is part of their life. It's not a process, which means fail fast, fail often, but fail you must and keep moving on. Yeah, that is one part. And the other part is, whenever they are designing something, they never looked at the market as US, California, or US, or North America. When Apple came up with the iPhone, they said my market size is 7+ billion around the world. So we are designing product for the world, not for just this state, community, or the geography, right? And I think that makes a huge difference. And of course, whoever put on the hat of designing for the world have gone places. Yeah, so that has been our journey, and that is where we had come in and brought in a lot of the elements here. And of course, we kind of customized it, as you would see a little later. We kind of customized it to fit to the social demands and background and setup of this part of the geography. For example, design thinking says no hierarchy, right? We do run a lot of workshops for the government. In fact, we are doing one for a Tamil Nadu Industries Department next week. You cannot tell them there is no hierarchy, because the decision process is wired by hierarchy, sometimes even constitutionally, right? So therefore, how do we adapt design thinking, not blindly, but rejig it for this part of the globe, is what has been. And so we ended up coming up with our own copyright framework for it, right? Okay, so I'm going to now share my screen and open the presentation. Okay, are you able to see Ramnath in a slideshow mode? Just to check.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so you see the title as Design the Thinking. There's no typo here, friends. This is what I talked about. We focus on preparing the mindset first before we go into the process. Because design thinking is all about in the thinking process. You will keep hearing, I'm sure you have gone through the journey of, get into the shoes of the customer, be the customer. And for us to get into the shoes of the customer, you got to get out of your shoes first. And that comes from mindset shift, right? How do I become the customer? How do I become the person who's facing the problem, right? Otherwise, you will solve great things, but the problem will still continue to be there. Because we know there are many things that the customer feels, but may not express it, right? Especially in your thing. Especially, it will be very interesting for those of you in fashion technology, right? Fashion design, right? Many a times you don't go with what the customer demands or asks as a requirement. You feel this is what the customer can benefit from to lift their image, or completely, rejig their entire image and whatnot, how they carry themselves, right? So one quick example to run you through what does it mean by getting into the shoes of the customers, right? Years ago, toothbrush, right? Of course, they designed beautifully. Toothbrush was designed, and yeah, and it worked great. Cleanliness, dental hygiene, everybody loved it across the globe. And suddenly they said, why can't we do the same thing for the toddlers as well? We need to start that habit of dental hygiene right from the childhood. So somebody said, great, toddlers have smaller mouth and smaller frame. Let's reduce the size of the brush, right? Of course, make the bristle a little softer, reduce the size of the brush, launch. And that's it. Simple solution, right? And customers came back complaining. Customers came back saying that the kids are bleeding. The toddlers are bleeding and screaming, they're getting hurt. And then an organization like IDEO, which is a spin-off from D School, Stanford D School, which IDEO is credited with a lot of creative, simple designs, right? Like the shopping cart with the brake and whatnot. Yeah? So they observed, they went around observing what were, as we call it, anti-patterns, right? What were the accidents happening with the toddlers using the brush? And simple blind spot that got missed, friends. So adults hold the brush this way, right? We all hold the brush this way. Have you seen the toddler?
I think there is some problem.
Yes, yes, his screen
Network
is.
issue, it seems.
End of the brush. So they came up
Yes,
with a
resume.
different
Thanks.
design, with a
Uh,
different bristles.
Anbu, I'm very sorry. We lost you for about last 15-20 seconds. I mean, you are about to tell how kids hold. Since then,
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, okay. Unstable connection, but I'm running with the two networks just in case I go wrong, but I think something went wrong. Sorry. So you're saying if kids hold it right with their fist, which means the pressure gets translated to the end of the brush. Therefore, they start bleeding. Versus the adults when you hold the brush this way, right? So that was a huge blind spot. So they went back and redesigned it, and rest is history. Yeah. So in design thinking, in each of the areas that you are all embarking on in design thinking, we call this as an hygiene factor, folks. Empathetic listening, right? Unbiased listening. Listening with no judgment, no preconceived notion, listening with no filter on. Okay, here is this person coming from this area, and I know what he or she is going to say. You have put a filter on already. What will happen? What will go wrong when you put the filter on? You will miss out on what the person is wanting to express, not in words, but otherwise. The next one is dialogue, not debate. We are all great at debating. Dialogue is a key thing for design thinking. Why dialogue? Because debate helps to identify who's right. Dialogue helps you to identify what is correct. And for design thinking, what is correct is the key thing. And third element, again, a keen, unbiased, absolutely zero judgment, empathetic observation. How do you observe around your stakeholders, ecosystem? How do you observe the behavior of your stakeholder? If you go into communication design, how do you observe around, or how do you listen to what they are expecting out of what you are wanting to communicate? How do you observe around the stakeholders to see, therefore you can package the communication or design the communication in a very niche way so it becomes very powerful. Or in fashion design, when we have designed something, how are they carrying and how are they feeling, how are they behaving when they are using one of the things that we designed? Or when you are trying to design something, when you are observing what is happening in their world, what are the struggles that they are going through that they may not even be able to tell you, right? So these are the three key things that we position as hygiene. Hygiene factor, right? Before we embark on design thinking, friends. Therefore, what is a good design? So you are all in different streams of design, and Surendra ji mentioned about how design and other things come together in your curriculum. So what is a good design, right? If I had to ask you, can I see a couple of you say some, put it in the chat box if you want to take a minute or so or 30 seconds? What comes to your mind when we say good design? Okay, 20 seconds, 30 seconds will be flooded with things. Okay, a design that solves problem in efficient and effective way. Okay, sustainability, seamless. Looking for an example of a good design. Something that comes to your mind, friends. I mean, these are all good answers, of course. Efficient and effective way, sustainable, or seamless. Simply aesthetic, but also usable. We have always seen iPhone as the favorite answer that comes up, right? No cognitive pressure, a design that satisfied our customers and gives them what they expect. Okay, good. Something that's functional, that means something to the user. Interesting. Okay. Safety pin. Designed, if you have to guess, 1849. It was designed to keep two things together. Of course, the history shows that it was an accidental design because this person, the inventor, was going on twisting a bit of a wire, and then it ended up like this, and he said, oh wow, can this keep things together, right? And that it did. The beauty here is such a simple design, friends, didn't have to be touched at all in nearly 180 years. Right, 170 plus years, didn't have to be touched at all. Of course, people change the size and the color and material and whatnot, but the fundamental core of the design stayed the same. Example of a great design which serves the purpose. And what's a bad design? Right, there are great design examples in India as well, which we'll come to later. Statistics shows majority of fatal accidents that involves trains happens near the station. People jumping through and not wanting to take the footover bridge. The whole idea of the footover bridge is to make sure that there are no accidents. People can cross through the footover, the platform safely. Still accidents happen because, as we call it, frictions, the anti-patterns, things that goes wrong in a design, right? The next time you are walking up into a footover bridge or crossing platforms in a major junction, railway junction, if you observe, there are people hollering one or two boxes, layers, hurriedly running for, what should I say, which platform, hurriedly running, right? looking for which platform they should get down, where their train is and things like that, right? And of course, the crowd and whatnot. Yeah, that's a
I think there is some technical glitch, sir. We're not able to hear you. Mr. Prabhu, I think there is some issue.
He's connecting back.
Yeah, that's okay. I think he's back.
Yeah.
We are not able to hear him, perhaps.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so okay. All right. So this is an example of we talked about the bad design. Design a good. Okay. So what are elements of great design? Right? Sorry.
Anvesha, probably you can request all the participants to go and mute. Someone's background noise is coming.
It is requested for all the audience to keep their mics on.
No, I think Anvesha, actually the mic should be kept off. Mute.
Ariman, are you handling the Zoom? Can you all just mute all the participants present?
Sorry, Madhumita, could you repeat?
Yeah, can you just mute all the participants? There's some more
Yeah.
noise coming in.
No,
Yeah,
instead,
yeah,
what I would suggest what I would suggest that let everyone mute themselves, because if someone wants to speak, then once again you will have to unmute it.
No, they can mute themselves as well, sir. Ariman, you mute everybody.
You mute it, okay, no problem.
Unmute themselves.
Yes, sir, we can start now.
Yes. Okay. So therefore, what are the elements of great design? I think this is very critical for all of you to kind of understand and observe. One is simplicity. Just because we are designing something doesn't mean it has to be very complex. Safety pin, very simple. In fact, I think I can recollect more occasions where I have poked my fingers in trying to remove a stapler pin from a bunch of paper than a safety pin. Right? Experience that have gone wrong in terms of foot over bridge. Frictionless, again, safety pin. It was meant to keep things safe without hurting, and that's it did. Efficient. Complexity reduction, reduce the complexity, right? And questioning assumptions, folks. That's a critical thing about design thinking is question the assumptions first. You always start with, why should it be this way? The history shows there are plenty of case studies written on how both, you will see empathy at the bottom, both by empathizing with the tourist, the visitors to different countries, the tourists, and questioning assumption that got the trigger for Steve Jobs to come up with a design for iPhone. The assumptions question was, why should I carry different gadgets when I'm going on vacation? Headphone, a digital camera or a camera on my neck, of a separate phone and an address book. Why can't I put them all together? So questioning assumptions, right? In anything, when you're stepping into a design, when you are assuming this is what my user needs, question that assumption. Why not that way, right? Here are some quick examples. Questioning assumption. Our assumption is you go to a restaurant has menus. Right? You are okay. So our assumption is restaurant has menus and you order out of those menu items, right? A bunch of youngsters, students are graduated like you all are going to do. They said, why can't we start something where the chef can prepare any dish of choice based on available ingredients for that day? So they will declare that these are the 10 things that the chef has today. He or she can make anything that you want out of it, right? And closer to home, questioning assumption is, who said that coffee shop is a place where you will go rush, drink a cup of coffee and run away? CCD, we know, disrupted the way coffee shops function in the country. A lot can happen over a cup of coffee is what they started with. And believe me, a lot has happened for many people. Unfortunately, let's remove some unfortunate incidences, but a lot of relationship mended, lot of relationships started, lot of interviews cracked, lot of friendships forged, lot of people relaxed. Because he questioned the assumption. Why can't people come and spend as much time as they want by just having a cup of coffee, right? Same way, decades ago, when Ford asked this question, why should customer be forced to pay full payment for the car? Can they pay token amount and the rest in installment? That started this disruptive EMI, which made sure that a car is put in the parking lot of many middle class. Patient has to come to a hospital, right? The third assumption is patient has to come to hospital. The founder of Arvind Eye Care, he questioned saying, why not the hospital go to where the patient is? And today the bus, mobile eye care hospital goes to different rural parts of the country, southern part of the country, right? So what is the assumption that you wanted to question? So you will come up with one of the most disruptive designs in your journey, friends. That I gave you one example of coffee day, right? If you look at great disruptive solutions or services that have come in the world, right? Take for example, Ola, Uber. Why should the passenger or person using the car have to walk taxi come to where I am, right? Why can't the taxi come to where the passenger is? That disrupted the entire travel business, right? So it all boils down to asking the questioning the assumption. Okay, I'm going to quickly introduce you to 3 design approaches that we have benefited from. The first one is straight from IDEO. As I said, the spin-off from Stanford D School. It starts with desirability of the end user. What does the customer, end user, desire to have? Right? That's where the inspiration for you comes from, for designing better product or service. Desirability. And between these two, would you give great experience? No. It has to be viable as a business. It has to be viable as a business for the users to have a great experience. right? A quick example. We all, many of us, most of us, I'm sure, I can say all of us, environment conscious, energy conscious. We want to save energy, of course, save money. We want to save the environment. So we would all love to have solar panels in our houses. So we always keep saying, for those of you who are from Chennai or have traveled to Chennai, you will know Chennai weather is hot, hotter, hottest. So which means you should be able to see solar panel in almost all the rooftops of the houses in Chennai, which is not the case even today. With so many things that government is giving subsidy. The desirability is there. It is technically feasible. The viability is missing. Therefore, it is not disrupted. Therefore, it has not gone across the entire society or a community, right? Because today the question would be, can I run an air conditioning using the solar energy? No. Can I run a washing machine? No. Okay, can it store for a long time? So if it rains for 5 days, I can continue to use it? Probably not. It's expensive. Maintenance is huge. So it is still not the viability part, right? Next definition. This is the professor who was from Yale, now at the Rotman School, right? Mystery. Many things stay at mystery. Several years ago, stock market, trading in stock market was a mystery, right? Decades ago. Then few people mastered it and it became a heuristics. Top of the mind recall, they would be able to trade through stock market until an organization comes in to create an algorithm out of it. Today, you can have an app and you can understand and start doing it all by yourself. You can do the analysis, you can do all of that yourself. So what we are saying is, for a business to scale and reach, you got to move from mystery all the way down to algorithm quickly. Classic example is McDonald's. Right, when they started as a small joint in Southern California, great hit. They couldn't go further until Ray Kroc came in, the investment banker, and created an algorithm for McDonald's. Today, McDonald's runs on an algorithm, friends. Any McDonald's you go across the globe will be the same. Standard operating procedure. And closer to home, the famous Dabbawala. Classic example of algorithm. What does algorithm give you? Scale, reach, predictability, and quickly adaptable. Somebody who joins in Dabbawala can quickly get adapted to the way it functions and get into the mainstream. In fact, Dabbawala, as you all know, is a classic example of beating Six Sigma by miles. Right? In fact, some of the consultants said, we can get you a barcode reader, you can expand. They said no. Again, simplicity in design, frictionless experience, all that comes out of Dabbawala. Classic example. The literacy rate of Dabbawalas is not as great as we would want it to be, but nevertheless, they are perfect in what they do. Because they know how to identify the Dabba by a shape, by a number, by a letter, by a color, and by a whatever, right? 5, 6 things, that's it. That's how they have created an algorithm. The third one, which is, I told you, we have been trying to create our own things contextual to this part of the globe, right? This is Intellect's homegrown design thinking approach. How do you identify the unstated requirements of the customer? Stated requirements are given, folks. The pain, the dissatisfaction, customer not wanting to use your product continuously comes out of missing the unstated requirements. Right? And how do you identify the unstated requirements? By looking at patterns and anti-patterns. By patterns, I'll give you examples quickly. By patterns and anti-patterns, we mean things that are working great in the customer end, things that are going wrong. Anti-patterns, we call them as accidents, things that are going wrong, right? Connecting the dots within the box and outside the box. Okay, what do we mean by within the box? You're trying to solve a problem, let's say in pedagogy design and teaching design. Within the box is trying to connect how else everyone else is teaching. How are the other teachers teaching? How are the other academics teaching? How are the other universities teaching? Connecting outside the box, how is the IAS training going on? How does McDonald's train their employees? How does the medical field train all the nurses and the medical field workers who give vaccine? Can I draw a parallel from there and connect to the training that I want to do as part of my course here, right? That's what we are trying to refer to as outside the box. Great disruptive thoughts and innovation comes by connecting outside the box. And finally, unearthing blind spots. Great designs fail because designers definitely would have missed some blind spots. For a long time, about 5% of the users, a long time ago, YouTube, iPhone, right? Combination, they came up with this feature. You don't have to upload your recorded video into your channel and then share it. A touch of one button, whatever video you're recording using your iPhone, touch of a button, it can get loaded into your YouTube automatically. People loved it. But 5% of the customers started complaining, my videos are upside down. Everybody get it, what is this? How can this be? How can that be? All that. I mean, they did a lot of research, right? They said, if it is upside down, let's do this, that, and all of those things. Finally, they realized by observing the anti-patterns that the app assumes the user is a right-hand user. So whoever is a left-hand user, the videos were getting loaded upside down. Complete blind spot. Eventually fixed, of course, right? That's what we are talking about, blind spot. Okay. Patterns and anti-patterns. Quick example, then I'll give you a couple of more examples on other things. Gillette, they saw a huge business in India because people love to shave, clean shaven face. If you're seeing your dad, granddads for some of you, right? For my father, when he shaved, it was an episode for him every day, right? He has to sit, spend that time to shave and whatnot. So they came up with a beautiful design for this part of the globe. The hair is little thicker for the way BR Asians have thicker hair. Design, they actually spent a lot of money to design the blades, right? Then they said testing. Okay, when we are testing, okay, why test it all the way, taking it back to India? Let's test it with few of the Indians here in the US and Canada. Great, everybody said this is awesome. They launched, failed, miserably failed. And they said, wait a minute, go observe what's going on. They went to every corner of the country, observed people shaving. What happened? First of all, we are very frugal about water. Water is a rare commodity for us. And in the US, people were cleaning the blade in a running water. Here, people had a little cup and they were dipping the blade in the water, right? So the blade design has to accommodate that dip and a little jiggle. And people end up shaving in darkness because joint family, sometimes 8, 10 people, one bathroom. This was years ago. I'm talking about more than 2 decades ago, right? When Gillette came in. They inevitably get up early in the morning, little very dim light, and they have to shave, right? All that were unstated requirements and anti-patterns that completely got missed. So Gillette went back, redesigned, and rest is history, as we all know, right? Half an hour to shave in India versus 5 to 7 minutes. If you look at unearthing blind spots here, water shortage, right? Early morning shave. All those things that got missed because they did not observe the patterns, right? So quick example of unstated requirements. Airbnb, how did they disrupt? They latched on to the unstated requirements of both the parties who are going and staying and the parties who are renting out the place. The party, the people, the stakeholders who are going and staying, they wanted economical choice for a resort-like experience. And the people who are renting it out, they just said, I want to rent it out because it is empty. Unstated requirement is we want companion. We want people to be coming into our house. We want acquaintances. We want forged relationships. That's what Airbnb latched onto. Connecting outside the box. Arvind Aikar, Govindappa Venkataswamy, when he started after retirement, that he wanted to cure blindness, 80% of the blindness he saw across the world could be cured. So cataract, right? So he said, I want to come up with a lens that will cost less than $5. Those days it was $300 per lens. So 80% of the people said it's too expensive. I will rather go blind. Even in today's standard, it's expensive. He said, I wanted a lens that is $5 or less, and I wanted to ship it across the globe. Give me a model. The first thing the consultant said, okay, great. Let's study what's going on with other eye care institutes in the US, in Europe, in London, in Singapore, in Australia, in India, in Japan, whatnot. He said, forget it. You guys are not giving me what I want. I'm going to the US. They said, where? I'm going to California. California, what? Where? Why? He said, I wanted to go visit McDonald's because they mastered the art of replicating and scaling across the globe with high quality and for same cost. That's what I need. You can check out the YouTube video. Rest is history. Today, Arvind Aikar, you can walk in saying that you cannot afford to pay for the surgery. They will still complete the surgery for you. You walk out free. He has single-handedly created an ecosystem to remove that curable blindness from lakhs of people today, right? Just because he connected outside the dot for inspiration. And blind spots, right? I'm going to leave two examples of blind spots, friends. Great purpose-driven, very noble cause, Tata Nano. Can a middle-class family afford a car? Just a little more expensive than a bike. Noble cause. Beats everybody else's by miles. Only thing that went wrong, when they marketed, some of you would know, they said cheap car. Here is a cheap car for all of you. Nobody wanted to identify themselves as someone driving a cheap car. Unfortunately, it never took off. Huge blind spot for the marketing team, right? That's what we are talking about, right? And of course, we know during the pandemic, everybody said face mask, until a school kids in New York asked this question. What about people who survive purely on reading lips? Right? They were not wearing masks. So technology by itself is not the disruptor. Not being customer centric is the biggest threat to any business. You take anything, black taxi vanishing, Uber coming in, Blockbuster, Richie Rich video rentals dying, Netflix coming in. You take anything, folks. All that is because not being customer centric. So as Steve Jobs said, you got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. Because the technology is there, I wanted to develop 20 things and give it to you. Like we always say, right? Don't look customers for your product. Look for products for your customer. Right? There is only one business that thrives on making products and then looking for customers. I don't want to mention it here. I will leave it to you to guess that. If anybody makes a right guess, yeah, let Ramnath know. We'll the first person who makes the right guess, Ramnath, will make sure we'll mail them some goodie from our design center. Yeah, only business that actually makes the product first and then looks for customer. Yeah, or creates customer situations. Okay. So what is design thinking then? I mentioned being customer centric, human centered, absolutely future focused, friends. We are not solving today's problem. We are solving the future's situation. And of course, it has to create value, right? So therefore, the differentiator. So I'll give you quickly run through differentiator. Tomorrow, people shouldn't ask you, okay, you sat through this session on design thinking. How is it different from traditional thinking? Traditional thinking, friends, what is the right answer? Those of you are going to step into corporate sooner than later, you will know your boss is going to say, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. That's a traditional thinking. I'm sorry. Design thinking says, what's the right question? There is a problem. Peel a layer to say, why is that a problem? Because of that, peel another layer saying, why is that? Because. Right? Otherwise, you will be solving the symptoms. If you don't believe me, next time when you are driving or traveling, look at, closely observe some of the flyovers and where the traffic is. Many a times the traffic is jammed at the bottom of the flyover and there is nothing on top of the flyover, which means the symptom was solved, not the actual problem, right? Traditional thinking, more talk. Design thinking, more listen. Empathetic listening for what is not being said but felt by the end user. Traditional thinking is data. Design thinking, friends, is the stories. Data shows so many people didn't use Gillette. The story says, I love this product, but you know, it hurts me every time I have to waste so much of water. Do you know water is scarce for us? We worship water. Right? That's the story. We are not saying don't problem is. Design thinking will help you understand why that is a problem. Events, experiences. Talk about facts is traditional thinking. Talk about feelings is the design thinking, right? So that's a quick rundown, right? And I'll give you 3 laws of design thinking that we had come up with. Some of these things are our copyright work where we have improved on stabilizing and making it a culture. For us, design thinking should become a culture. Less is more, right? The other day we were running a workshop for automobile industry. One person said, our business, we want to expand the number of variants. They have 14 variants for one model of the car. I asked why. To cater to different customer. I said, great. How would it be if you have just 3 variants? Do you know, as a user, I always walk out with this dilemma. Okay, I paid 13.5 lakhs for this car. Do you think if I had paid 14 lakhs, I would have got that model? Or if I paid 13 lakhs, would it have been okay? Did I get cheated for 50,000? Right? How many people walk around? So they are still working on that to see how less is more. iPhone, when they came up, people were saying, where are the other apps? Steve Jobs said, that's it. You don't need more than a bunch of apps, right? That's less is more. Last 2% equals 200%. 98% of products that you see across are almost the same. iPhone is same as Samsung phone. iPhone is probably same 98% of features, functionality, everything. But the last 2% experience that iPhone gives 200% experience. The last 2% focus that iPhone is given. So people don't mind paying that additional 30,000 rupees and stand in a queue to buy iPhone. Hotels is busy. They will usher you directly to your room. They will not even the very all folks terms of adding baiting. Yes, Ramnath.
Anbu, we lost you for last 15-20 seconds.
Oh boy, I'm so sorry. Okay. All right. So theory of prioritization, it is about weightage. right? We think weightage is linear, but it's actually exponential. In a list of 10 things to do for you in your to-do list, right? How do you ensure that you focus on the most important one? If you say 1, 2, 3 does not mean that the 2 and 3 and 4 are almost equal. But when you say 3,000 gram items, 400 gram items and 3 10 gram items, you know where your energy will have to go. So today in our organization and all of our clients whom we run these workshops, we ask them to come up with 1,000 gram items to focus on, right? And this is our philosophy. I mentioned earlier what we have done with design thinking. We have split that into two. Design the thinking, which is our copyright work, which works on the mindset first, and then go into the process of thinking the design. We feel that becomes easier. Thinking the design becomes easier, right? Once we sort out the mindset. And here is a rundown of some of the things that we do, folks, as part of School of Design Thinking, right? Of course, our flagship program is faculty development, right? Where, again, shifting the focus. The important aspect when you are embarking on finding a solution, designing a new solution, is shift that focus dot. Can we shift that focus from teaching to learning? The whole thing changes.
Anbu,
Yes,
I mean, correct me, Surendra sir, Anvesha, Madhumita, we are seeing this slide of 3 laws, right?
Yes.
was that right?
Yeah, we are seeing the 3 laws slide.
Oh, okay. Let me stop and start it again. Hold on. Oh boy.
I thought there was no slide for this part of the presentation. Yes, here it is.
Okay, can you see this
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Design thinking equals designer thinking. Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what we are talking about, splitting design thinking into two in terms of mindset and the process. Because we feel focusing on the process directly does not help to peel the layers that we talked about, right? Peel layers and become the customer, feel the pain of the customer, right? Go under the hood to see what is the customer actually experiencing, what are the stories, what are the pain points, what are the desirabilities, what are the unstated requirements, the anti-patterns and the blind spots. All that comes with the design mind. For example, what do we mean by design mind? For a regular analytical mind, it will say there are 140 participants here. For a design mind, it would say 140 curious learners, right? That's what we are talking about. And as I was saying, these are the things that we do with the academics. Just wanted to place it here. As I was saying, shifting the focus dot. Am I teaching or am I facilitating learning? Right? And we do a credit course, of course, as I mentioned earlier, and we do one of a very unique program we call Innovate for students who are on the entrepreneurship journey while at college. Again, shifting the focus from product development to customer development. I love the technology. I love this. So I'm going to come up with a product and I'm looking for a customer. You will get customer. Well, would you become the next Tesla? Would you become the next Apple, or would you become the next Uber? No. That will come when you shift the focus from product development to customer development. Right. So this is something that we do as part of a lot of the things that we do for academics. So in close, folks, it is all about how do I get into the shoes? How do I become the customer? Right? Survey is very easy. Survey is the easiest solution. Let's circulate a survey form, bring the data back. Great. Start with the data, but don't end with the data. Move to design thinking. Like I said, events, experiences, and I talked about feelings, blind spots. Government, Chhattisgarh government did a very noble thing. They said, we are going to lift the livelihood of tribal people by giving them a brick and mortar house to live. Let's improve their stature in the society. Otherwise, they were in a hut that is leaking and whatnot. Great. They brought in a best architect. They constructed beautiful house. 90% of the houses were never occupied. Of course, immediately the human mind jumps in, right? Analytical mind, 90%, I bet they wanted to rent it out and still be in that rut and whatnot, all comments, all judgments passed. Until a point somebody started observing and realized, wait a minute, elderly people have moved in. It is the younger people who are not willing to move in. Did we miss something in the design? So they went and listened to their stories. They went and dialogued with them. They went and observed what is happening. They identified a blind spot. Their culture, their belief, their culture demands, or the practice rather, is when there is a newborn, they need to enter through the rear door of the house. Otherwise, it's a bad omen for the newborn and the entire family. And our architect, for whatever reason, hopefully not cost saving, decided there would only be front door, there is no rear door. They said it's a bad omen, sorry, we cannot move. And that's what we are talking about, right? Look at the events, look at the experiences that the end user will go through, look at the feelings, look at the stories, listen more, start asking more questions, peel layers, get under the hood to understand what is that unstated requirements that the end user has. Otherwise, the desirability of the end user will always stay to the designer as a mystery, right? And of course, in our experience, you can design anything and everything. From language design to Singapore as a country was designed. South Indian food system has been designed. And my favorite one that I spend a lot of time, spare time, of course, and whenever possible on weekends for charitable work is life design for youngsters. Can I design my life? Right, using some of the elements of design thinking, yeah. Okay, so we just attempted to give you a sneak peek into this thing. Of course, as I told you, it's a 3-day worth of content we had to squeeze into just to give you a bird's eye view, right? So with that, I'll stop. Back to you, Ramnath. And Anvisha.
Yeah, Anvesha, in case we have a few minutes, in a few questions.
Yeah, sure, sir. So thank you, sir, for.
I think we have half an hour time right now. Still, we have half an hour time to go.
So that half an hour is for.
Okay. So students can, ask questions, I believe. Misha, you can take up.
Yes, sir. Like the floor is open now for students to ask questions.
So many budding designers here. I'm sure that there must be a lot of questions. Sir has given us quite an insight into design thinking in such simple approach, such simple ways that for someone like me who doesn't belong to the design community, I could approach and I could understand what design's purpose is in the life of an individual, in the life of the mass as a whole. So I'm sure this must inspire a lot of questions inside the igniting minds of our students. So I urge you all ask questions, make the most of this opportunity.
On the lighter side, I can I can only say one thing, that either the students have understood completely or they have not understood anything. But it was such a wonderful insight. In fact, I must say that these examples were wonderful examples that we have given.
Anvisha, there are a few questions in the chat box. If you
yes, sir.
I would urge students rather to ask questions directly instead of writing it on the chat box.
Vignesh S has asked a question. It says, my major question is, for each individual, likes varies, but how do us as a designer give a product that satisfies masses
Okay. All right, Vignesh, very interesting question, right? What we do, right? We do look at a cluster of your end user. Of course, we are not going to be able to design anything for each individual, right? You take anything, you take any product or service, right? Having said that, what we look at is the cluster. We use a tool called Persona, right? You would have heard of that, right? Persona, very important, bare minimum needed tool is Persona, empathy map, and journey map. These are the three things mandatorily we use for all of our design approaches, right? You look at a cluster persona. Let's say you are solving a problem for teenagers. You're coming up with something for teenagers. Every teenager will always have that 1% that will be their own unique requirement. But as a designer, you always focus on the majority of the cluster persona that the user belongs to, right? For example, you take Surf Excel. Surf Excel is something that Hindustan Unilever came up with for middle class family. In their advertisement, they use the lady, no gender bias, of course, they used it, so I'm repeating it here, with a white dress, absolutely white dress. That the advertisement design, the focus for that target mass, since you mentioned the word satisfy the mass as in middle class, they were targeting that class after having understood the persona where they want to stand out in the crowd. They want to look to be role models, right? They don't want any dirt. They don't want people to pass on judgment. So they said, okay, I'm going to advertise this product as stand out. And remember, in a Ren ad, there is a lightning that comes, hits you, and then you turn out to be bright white. Versus the same Hindustan Unilever reject the product, right, for another mass, upper middle class, those days, few years, a couple of decades, or a decade ago, not a decade ago, where upper middle class can afford washing machines. So they came up with Surf Excel, where the persona of upper middle class mother is, I want my son to be outside, not stuck to TV or gadgets. Can he be or she be outside? My daughter, I want her to get dirty, but get that physical activity. So their advertisement is about getting dirty is good. Surf Excel is there. Right? Similar product, washing detergent for washing the clothes, position for one mass differently, another mass differently. That's what you should approach it. Otherwise, things will become very chaotic if you want to cater to. It'll go back to a car having 20 different variants. You will tend to lose more customers than sticking to one or two variants, right? Yeah.
Got it, sir.
Thanks, Vignesh.
We shall wait for 2-3 minutes so that more and more audience can ask questions.
Sure.
I would like to ask a question.
Yes, Suchira.
Hello. First of all, sir, it was a great session. It was very thorough and gave me a lot to think about.
Okay.
So my question is regarding the elements of great design. So
Okay.
one or two things which you spoke about was simplicity and complexity reduction. I would like to know how they are different from one another, and if possible, could you give us an example of maybe a product or a service where simplicity was achieved but complexity reduction was not achieved?
Okay, I couldn't hear your question completely, Suchira. Sorry.
I will repeat it. My question
Hello?
was regarding the elements of great design. So you spoke about simplicity and complexity reduction, and I would like to know what the difference between these two these two topics are, and if possible, could you give us an example of maybe a product or a service wherein simplicity was achieved but
Suchira, can you
complexity
hear me?
reduction? Yes, sir.
Yes, Anbu, we are able to hear you. Were you able to hear Suchira's question?
I don't think.
I believe his bandwidth is low.
Hello?
That's what it's showing.
Anbu, are you able to hear us? Let me call and inform him.
That's a great question, Suchira. I also, started thinking on those lines once that was shared, that what would be the difference between those two, simplicity and reducing the complexity. Aren't they the same thing? It's a good question.
All right. Can you hear me now, Ramnath?
Yeah.
Okay, my apologies. I don't know. This is Murphy's Law at the peak of its action today, unfortunately. So I run on 2 networks. On top of it, I have a dongle also that runs on backup. Can you believe all 3 are not cooperating with me today? I'm so sorry. Very unusual. Okay, Suchira, sorry. If you could just repeat your question at the end, the part I missed.
So you heard the first part?
And complexity, yeah.
Yes, sir. So, and my last part was that, and if possible, could you give us an example of wherein a service or a product achieved simplicity but was not able to achieve complexity reduction, if they are in case different?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Okay. Simplicity is, let's say, I'll give an example of first. Complexity reduction is, if I have to quickly think through off the cuff, is like how you do the UPI Google Pay, right? That's a complexity reduction, especially during COVID times where you open up, QR code, scan, boom, it is done, right? That's absolute complexity reduction. Otherwise, you go through several other things to get an OTP and whatnot, right? Having said that, I don't know if I have a direct example yet. I need to think through, Suchira, but it's a brilliant question in terms of where, right, where we have addressed the simplicity, but it has not reduced the complexity. I don't know, Ramnath, if you think of something.
This question has really made us think.
Correct. But it's a very interesting question. We're connecting both, right? Okay. We'll see if it comes to anything comes to our mind before we end the session. We'll definitely share that, Suchira, or we'll definitely mail it back to you. But it's a brilliant question.
Thank you, sir.
So there's another question in the chat box that has been given by Anakha Chakrapani.
Okay.
Which says, in today's time, inclusive design is extremely important. How do we create designs which are inclusive to all the members of society, including PWD?
Okay.
PWD is Public Works Department, if that's the common abbreviation we hear, or something else.
I think that's what she meant.
Okay.
It's means person with disabilities.
Okay.
Person with disabilities. Okay.
Person with disability. Very interesting question. Okay. The the key to inclusive design is absolutely important. And in fact, more than being important, Naga, it has become a necessity right today. The way we are actually breaking the boundaries or actually dissolving those boundaries of even calling people with, even trying to identify there is a person with disabilities. Design should become, irrespective of that. And how do you create design? The key part is to observe, and observe. Observe the difficulty that the person with different abilities is going through, trying to use a product that you are trying to redesign or enhance. Talk to them, dialogue with them, listen to them, observe. Right? There was I do sit in a lot of those doctoral committees, right, with some of the universities. One of the ones that after so much of effort by a faculty, I had to reject that faculty's doctoral work, because this person was trying to come up with an app for visually challenged, right? Absolutely based on data, brilliant work done. My only question was, how many people who are visually challenged have you met with, spoke to, and observed in railway stations, in airports and train stations and in markets? The candidate's answer was 0. So I had to say, I'm sorry, it's not an inclusive design at all. Right? So to create that design for all the members, the first thing is to completely go observe and observe. We are not saying just in one occasion, observe in different aspects of their life, how they are doing, right? That will give you anti-patterns, the struggle that they are going through. Therefore, it easily becomes part of your design.
Anbu, a thought came, is our Velachery flyover the example we give, can that be an answer for Suchira's question?
Yeah. Brilliant. Exactly. Okay. Thanks, Ramnath. All right. Okay. So Suchira, so just to give you a quick example, is there is a flyover in Chennai. Velachery is the area where I used to travel through that road every evening. It will take about 10 to 15 minutes to cross a particular junction. Then they decided, of course, they studied the data. We religiously saw 2 people standing in each side of the road, religiously noting down in their notebook. These are about 8 years ago, 10 years ago. How many vehicles are crossing, what time, and all that. Beautiful data collected, hats off to the corporation folks, right? And then finally, they decided a flyover should come in one direction. Great. I'm still continuing to travel. After the flyover, it takes me 20-25 minutes to clear the traffic in that junction. Right? They thought it was a simple design, right? Put a flyover across one direction, enough, simplicity. But in fact, it not only not reduced the complexity, it increased the complexity because the entire traffic was under the flyover now. In the peak time, there was not much happening on the top of the flyover. And the blind spots, to add to it, the blind spot that they later realized was there is a hospital in one corner, which means the moment a siren goes up, the traffic has to clear. And then there are, because of the hospital, there are street hawkers who have been having stores there for time immemorial, which the staff and the caretakers of the patients for the hospital were dependent on. The flyover made sure they all have to be cleared, which means these guys got back again near the flyover, creating more traffic jam, right? So that's a quick example. Thanks, Ramnath.
Sir, I do have one more follow-up on this, but couldn't we also said that here there was a misidentification of the problem? Because
absolutely, you're bang on, Suchira. That's why we said peel the layers. Don't go by the first look and said this is the problem, right? For them, traffic at this time is a problem. The solution would be put a flyover, traffic will clear. But actually, if they applied design thinking, they would realize that that is a symptom for a problem that was completely different. The hospital could have leased out the space to the street hawkers inside and charge them something, right? Ambulance could have had a different way to clear the traffic and go. Or perhaps the traffic that is coming in around that time, there were some of the slow moving vehicles that are coming around that time. A quick solution would be to stop the slow moving vehicle between 4 and 6 p.m. in the evening. Right? Solution could have been different. You are absolutely right. They went after the wrong problem. In fact, in Bangalore, there is a flyover. Some of you who are Bangalorean, you will know. There right, which basically is too dangerous structurally and solving the wrong problem.
Anbu lost you for a 5-6 seconds. I mean, you said the word Bangalore and we are not able to.
All right, sorry, very sorry about that. Oh, okay. So in Bangalore, there is a flyover which has signal on top of the flyover, right? There is a traffic that goes up to the flyover and there is a stoplight. Which means they are absolutely solving the wrong problem or solved the wrong problem. So that's the case here, absolutely, you're bang on. That's not even the problem. Perhaps it doesn't even require a flyover there.
Thank you, sir. That was a very thorough answer to my question.
Okay, because see, what happens is if I had to give you a very practical example that some of us you might have faced at least once in your lifetime is you have a terrible headache. You go to a doctor, the doctor gives you a tablet for the headache, painkiller. You take painkiller, the headache goes away. And then you stop the painkiller, the headache comes back. Then you go to an expert. The expert says, you know what? I think the problem is with your stomach. It's generating too much of acid. Maybe it's a lot of stress studying for exams and cramming day and night. I'm going to give you an acid blocker that knocks off the headache completely. The headache disappears after 30 days. That's what we are talking about, solving the symptom versus the problem. Yeah.
In the interest of time, I would like to end the session.
Okay.
So I must say it was a wonderful insight was given by Dr. Anbu, and the examples were so easily understandable, and it was so easy that at least as Ravi also said, and I am also not a person from the design background, but he made us understand really what is a good design, what is a bad design, desirability and inspiration, viability and important compilation and feasibility, and so on and so forth. And the best part was that don't look for a customer for your product. I like this very much. Don't look for a customer for your product, rather look for a product for your customer. Wonderfully said, sir. It was a wonderful product. This thing, I must say, all these students must be very they have learned a lot. At least we have learned a lot, and we would look forward for more and more sessions. And post pandemic, whenever it happens, we would like you to have us on the campus and have a session for all of us, rather including our faculty members also. I'm sure that we are going to learn a lot from you. Thanks again. Thanks a lot, sir. On behalf of Avantika University, I once again thank you very much, and have a nice time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure. Thanks for the invitation. We enjoy interacting with the students and faculty, in the academics, because we feel taking design thinking there actually can do a lot good for the larger cause that you all are stepping into, right? In terms of academics. I mean, this is the foundation of the country, right?
Very true, very true. These days, design is the way.
Correct. Absolutely.
Actually.
Yeah.
Actually. Yes, Anvisha.
As we near to the end of this session, I would like to thank our speaker for sparing his time and sharing these insights about design thinking with us. Your valuable inputs have been very helpful to us. We wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors. Thank you, sir.